Hi, everyone. This is Amy Peterson, and you are in the breakout session today for tools and resources to support students with severe and persistent learning and behavioral needs in private schools from the National Center on Intensive Intervention. We're excited to have Zach Weingarten here to present on some of the tools and resources that NCII has that can be used within the private school space to support the identification of assessments, interventions, support students that are struggling both academic and behaviorally, and so on. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Zach and we'll jump right in.
Great, thanks, Amy. Okay, so welcome everyone. Welcome to this session. We are, as Amy said, from the National Center on Intensive Intervention. And we're going to share some freely available tools and resources which are on the NCII website. And we really think these are going to be beneficial for supporting struggling students in your schools or students with disabilities. Okay, so just a little bit of background about the National Center on Intensive Intervention. We've been around for just over 10 years now. We're going on our third cycle of funding, funded through the Office of Special Education Programs at the Federal Department of Education. And you can see our mission here on this slide. We work across the system, the education system, with local schools, districts, all the way up to state departments of education, and focused on building that capacity of educators and leaders to implement intensive intervention. And when we say intensive intervention, we're talking about instruction and intervention for students with severe and persistent learning and or behavioral needs. And so on the right side of the slide here, you can see a graphic which really drives a lot of the work of NCII. This graphic represents our data-based individualization process, or DBI process. And you can see it's an iterative process of using data to think about what works for a student. And so as we go through some of the resources that I'm going to share with you, this graphic and this idea of using data and providing intervention is really kind of the foundation for a lot of what we do. So on this slide, you can see a screenshot of our website, which is at www.intensiveintervention.org. All these resources are going to be freely available. We've organized the website for different audience types as one way you can find resources. So you can go to, if you're a state or local leader, you can explore resources for your audience, for your role. We also have the tabs at the top organized by different topics of interest. And you can also access our social media through the website, as well as sign up for our newsletter. So the first resource that I wanted to share with you is our tools charts. And our tools charts are really a popular resource for selecting evidence-based interventions and assessments that you can use when you're working with students who are struggling or students with intensive needs. And so a big part of that DBI process is using high quality assessments and interventions to figure out what a student needs and are they making progress. So we have currently 6 tools charts for both academics and behavior. And the tools charts can be thought of as sort of a consumer report for these interventions and tools. So they're not going to necessarily recommend a particular tool for you, but you can really see what the evidence is behind each of them. And the way this works is that we bring together groups of experts to review evidence, and they go through and rate these different resources and tools on a variety of criteria. So you can find freely available resources here. You can also find out such things as, is this a reliable and valid assessment? What is the evidence behind a particular intervention? What kind of outcomes do we see? So these are all really valuable resources for kind of finding high quality assessments and interventions. All right, I'm going to go on to our next one. Our next set of resources are the sample lessons and strategies. So we have sample lessons and strategies across 3 areas. We have reading, math, and behavior. And these are designed for teachers to be able to use in their classrooms right away. So for instance, the reading lessons are designed as quick instructional routines. They're scripted lesson plans in each of the big ideas of reading, and teachers can download these and use them to supplement their instruction. So they're not designed as to be a standalone intervention necessarily, but more to supplement an existing intervention, because we know that students who are struggling need lots of practice, lots of varied practice opportunities. And so these lesson plans can be used to provide some of that additional practice. All of the lessons are very explicit, meaning that there's a lot of teacher modeling and guided practice. So they're a valuable resource for kind of showing what that looks like in application in the classroom. So the behavior strategies are things like, you can see antecedent modification here, different strategies such as behavior contracts, group contingencies that can be used to address behavioral issues in the classroom, either for individual students or for groups of students. And then there's the math strategies as well. There are some videos and activities that go along with the various math lessons and strategies. So these are popular resources that we hope you check out. Our next group of resources are the goal setting tools. And so one thing, when we think about working with students with disabilities or students who struggle, this idea of having goals for them is really important. We know that we want to have a goal that is individualized for the student. So we need to have a process for kind of figuring out what that individualized goal is for the student. And so we've developed a couple of resources to help teachers and leaders go through this process of setting goals. You can see that it says strategies for setting individualized education program goals. That can also be used for setting progress monitoring goals as well. So progress monitoring is a big part of this. To do progress monitoring well, we need valid and reliable goals, which we can track a student's progress towards. So we have a guide for both academic goals and as well as behavioral goals. And these guides lay out a step-by-step process for developing high quality goals. We also have a tool, and it's an Excel tool or calculator that can help teams kind of do this progress monitoring process. So that's what's shown here on the screen as well. The next set of resources is around fidelity of implementation. And so when we're talking about fidelity, we mean doing what we said we would do or what was intended. And so this idea of fidelity is a really important piece of intervention because we know that it's not enough just to select an evidence-based intervention or assessment. We have how we implement that really matters. And so fidelity refers to, it looks at that idea of how is implementation going? Is implementation happening, as it was intended? And so we have different resources to help educators, track how they're implementing an intervention or an assessment and what to think about when they're implementing. So on the left side, you can see the student intervention implementation log, and that is a resource for documenting, was the student present, were they engaged in the intervention, and sort of those kind of details. And it helps teachers and teams reflect on is the student accessing the intervention as it was intended? We found that that focus on fidelity has been really powerful for sites that we've worked with, and just making sure there's a focus on providing the intervention with fidelity can really help improve student outcomes. We've also have a couple other resources shown here. The one in the middle kind of highlights different elements of fidelity to think about. So, to what extent are we sticking to the plan? What's the quality of delivery like? Is the student engaged? All of these kind of different ideas. And then on the right, you see a screenshot of a tool related to the fidelity of assessments and data entry, because we know, just like with intervention, we need to make sure we're delivering an assessment or providing an assessment the way it was intended. Okay, so the next set of tools are our data teaming tools. And so going back to that DBI process that I spoke about in the beginning, ideally that's a team-led process. And so teams are looking at data together and making decisions about, what works for a student, what might be causing a student to have difficulties, what kind of changes the team can make to the student's instruction or intervention. So this team process, there's a lot of pieces to it. And so we wanted to put together some resources to help teams through that process. And so we have shown here some of those resources. We have, a student summary form for preparing for the meeting. We have things like facilitator's guide, participant guides, sample agendas, note-taking template, all for helping teams go through this data-driven process. We also have some related resources that will help teams kind of hone in on what the particular needs of the student are. So one is the clarifying questions to create a hypothesis document. And, this helps teams kind of identify what might be, develop a hypothesis in terms of trying to figure out what could be causing the student to have difficulty in the intervention. And then, our intensification strategy checklist helps teams think about what kind of changes they might make to an intervention, things like more practice opportunities, aligning the intervention more closely to the student's area of need, more teacher modeling or explicit instruction. So kind of providing some ideas for how they might intensify instruction. We also have an intervention plan, which can document the details of the student's intervention. So all these are different tools for our data teams.
Great, thanks, Zach. One thing that I just want to point out and note here for everyone as well is that many of these tools and resources are available in a Word document format, in addition to being available as a PDF or other format. So we have sites that have used and adapted these materials, these teaming materials in Google sites and Google Drives, if they are, a site that's a Google focused school or district, or adapted them to better suit their needs, meet their needs. You'll see on the intervention intensification strategy checklist, there's even some additional spaces for you to add some additional consideration strategies for intensifying that you might be using in your school or district as well. And I'll also note the importance of that intervention plan template that Zach just mentioned, because when we're thinking about the fidelity that we were talking about on the previous slide, as we intensify that intervention over time in that DBI process, if we're not clearly documenting the changes or adaptations we're making over time, it's really difficult for us to know whether we're delivering that adapted intervention with fidelity. So that intervention plan really becomes that tracking log of what we're supposed to do for that intervention for the student, so that we can then track and monitor fidelity to that plan. So just wanted to highlight a couple of those things. One other question that we saw was a question about access to all the links and resources that we will be sharing. There is a handout that highlights all of those links and resources that will be available as well, so that you can easily find them on the website or search for them or things like that. But we'll definitely get that link document to everyone. And also that many of these tools and resources, other than some of the ones that are on that tools chart section that Zach mentioned earlier, are freely available. Everything that the center has developed, all of these teaming tools, the Fidelity tools, all of those different things are freely available for your use. And we encourage you to use them, share them, disseminate them with your colleagues, and use them in your schools. They are all available for you. Some interventions and assessments on the tools charts do have an associated cost because those are developed by external vendors, and we are just doing the reviews of them. But there are some freely available ones that Nick or Zach mentioned as well, that you can filter and search for on those charts for more information. So I'll turn it back to Zach to share a couple other resources.
Great, thank you, Amy. Okay, so we wanted to highlight a newer resource, which is our self-paced learning module library. So in collaboration with the Progress Center, NCII has developed a set of learning modules that are available now. And you can access these through the website, and you can, you would register, complete the self-paced modules there, and then you'd be able to access course completion certificates. And many of the resources that we've talked about are also kind of included in these, along with these modules as well. So this is what the page looks like here. And we encourage you to check that out, so you can share with others who want to learn more at their own pace. So we have more modules coming soon. Right now we have these 3 up on the platform. Starting with your most basic or introductory module here on the right side, which is Introduction to Intensive Intervention. So we encourage people to start with that course, then go a little deeper with the 5 steps of DBI. And then finally, for a more in-depth understanding about kind of the selection and adaptation of an intervention, you can look at the overview of the taxonomy of intervention intensity. So we are having some more modules are going to be added soon.
Yep, and I'll just jump in again and note that one additional module is also available up there from NCII. It was just recently released around teaming. So all of those data teaming tools that we talked about earlier, there is a training module that's available that really talks about how do you set up efficient and effective teaming procedures to support the DBI process. And it highlights a lot of those different tools and resources that have been shared. So that one is available up on the site as well. And I think, as Zach mentioned before, this is a collaboration with the Progress Center. So there are also some additional modules that the Progress Center has developed around developing and implementing a high quality educational program that may be of interest to you depending on your areas of need.
Great. So the last sort of suite of resources that we wanted to share is the NCII course content. And this content includes video lessons, activities, video examples, presentation slides, and coaching materials. This is for more of an in-depth look at some of these areas of intensive intervention. So we have, there's 4 topics that are covered. There's the features of explicit instruction course content, intensive intervention in mathematics, intensive intervention in reading, as well as intensive intervention in behavior. And so these are put together. They feature expert presenters, faculty from different universities, and these are really kind of targeted as teacher preparation resources. But anyone who wants a more in-depth understanding of what intensive intervention in these different areas kind of looks like, and lots of background and for a deep dive about it, you can check out these modules as well. So lots of great information here to check out. And then finally, we encourage you to stay connected with us. We have a Facebook and Twitter, which is at the NCII. And we hope you also can check out our video collections on YouTube and sign up for our newsletter that's available through the website. All of this is at intensiveintervention.org. So we hope you'll check it out and spend some time exploring, the resources that we shared today. And we thank you very much for your time, and thank you.
Thanks again. And as Zach mentioned from the start, NCII, we just received some additional funding for 5 more years of work. And so we will be continuing to put out resources and tools that are available. And if you have ideas about additional resources or tools that might be necessary or supportive in your schools or your districts, the schools that you're working with, please let us know. You can see my information up here at ampeterson@air.org. Or you can email us at ncii@air.org, and that goes to our team. We will continue to work on developing products and resources and making sure that they're universally available during this next round of funding. Zach will be leading out the product work for the center, and I will be leading out some of the universal technical assistance, which really means all of the resources, materials that are accessible and available on the website through freely available trainings and all of that stuff. So we have a lot of opportunity going forward. We're excited to continue this work with you all, and please let us know if there's anything that you need that would better support you as we go forward. And once again, thank you for your time today. We appreciate you coming to this session and learning more about NCII, learning about the resources that are available from the center, and we hope you will check them out. Thank you again.